Welcome everyone to today's session brought to you by the Society of American Archivists, Archivists of Religious Collections section. My name is Julia Armstrong, and I'm a member of the Models and Resources Committee of that section. And today we are pleased to present this Lunch and Learn on web archiving with ArchiveIt. So before I introduce our presenters today, just a few housekeeping things. If you refer to the screen, we remind you that the content in our presentations is for information only, is not legal advice, and our views do not represent the organizations where we work. We do not make any endorsements or guarantees and are not liable for loss or damage caused by use of the content provided. So it is everyone's responsibility to critically evaluate content on the presentation and accompanying materials. And please remember that you will not be able to use your microphone or video during the session. So we're going to ask you to enter any questions in the Q&A box, which appears at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please use the Q&A feature for questions, not the chat feature for questions. And we're going to have that section at the end of the presentation, but feel free to enter questions as we go along. If you would like to, there's a closed captioning button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So under live transcript, just click enable auto transcript and you'll get the closed captioning. Okay, so I think other than that, I need to let you know that we are recording the session, and afterwards we'll be sending out the recording to those who registered. You'll also get right away a short survey to fill out after the session ends, and we ask you to fill that in. It's very, very helpful to us. So now I would like to introduce our two presenters. Raven is Germain. Have I pronounced that correctly? Germain?
Yes,
Germain.
yes, exactly.
First joined the Internet Archive in 2019, and she started as a web archivist with the ArchiveIt team in 2020. Previously, she worked as public services assistant at the University of Alberta Archives. She holds a Master of Library and Information Studies degree from the University of Alberta and enjoys supporting web archiving efforts from her home in New Brunswick. And Catherine Falls has worked for Internet Archive Canada as a program officer in community programs since 2021. And before that, Catherine was an archivist at the Archives of Ontario and held various positions in archives and special collections libraries in the Toronto area. She holds master's degrees in both information studies and art history. And she's joining us from her home in Los Angeles. So welcome to you both. Many thanks for being here. And I look forward to the Q&A session later. I'm going to hand it over to you now. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I will share my screen. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much to the SAA-ARCS of Religious Collections section for inviting us here today. We are really grateful and excited to be here. And of course, thank you to you all for attending. We would love to hear where folks are coming from. I actually can't remember if we heard if the chat was enabled, but if it is, you know, drop your name and where you're coming from in the chat. So today we're going to be talking about web archiving and preserving web content with ArchiveIt, but just sort of first by way of introduction. So as Julia said, my name is Catherine Falls. I'm a program officer in community programs. I work for Internet Archive Canada. I'm originally from Treaty 7 territory, but as Julia said, I am now joining you today from my home on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Tongva peoples, also known as Tabongar or the Los Angeles Basin. I would like to express my gratitude to the Tongva for their stewardship of and continued presence in this place. And I would like to just note that the Tongva peoples continue to fight for land rights and just basic recognition from the American federal government in this place today. Internet Archive is a remote first organization, so our work touches on many Indigenous lands, but I would also just like to particularly acknowledge that Internet Archive headquarters are located in San Francisco on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, and in Vancouver on the unceded ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So we respectfully acknowledge all of the people of these nations who have protected the lands on which we are able to do the work that we do. So Raven, you want to jump in?
Great. Yes. Thank you, Catherine. So my name is Raven, like was said, and I'm a web archivist with Archivit. I've been in this role for almost 3 years now. In my capacity here at the archive, I work directly with our partners, providing support, helping them to create, fill, and build their own web archives. And I actually grew up in Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, Alberta, but I'm happy to be tuning in today from my current home in New Brunswick, which I would like to acknowledge as the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Peskoto muhkati peoples. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, so to give you a sense of where we're going today, I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to the Internet Archive for anyone who might not know who we are. I'm going to go over a kind of intro to web archiving at a high level. Then we're going to get into ArchiveIt, and Raven is going to do a demo. And then I'm going to kind of wrap up the last few minutes just talking about some of the community programs that we have at the Internet Archive. I do want to note this presentation is directed toward folks who are new to web archiving, have either never done web archiving before or have only done a little, and to folks who are either non-users of ArchiveIt or brand new users. If you are a current ArchiveIt partner and want a little bit of a deeper dive than we're going to cover today, we do have new user application training session. So if you're interested in that, we have the ArchiveIt email address listed on the bottom of this slide. So please reach out to us. We can schedule a session that's a little bit more advanced than we're going to cover today. And if you feel like a basic kind of web archiving intro is maybe a little bit too easy for you, we won't be offended if anybody decides to drop off the call. So I also just want to note a bit of housekeeping. Raven and I are going to be passing the baton back and forth so that she can do her demo. So please just bear with us through that transition. Okay. As Julia said, put any questions in the QA. We should have lots of time at the end and we'll sort of dive right in. So for anyone who might not know, the Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library of internet sites, books, music, videos, and other cultural artifacts in digital form. Like a paper library, we provide free access to researchers, historians, scholars, people with perceptual disabilities, and the general public. The Internet Archive was founded in 1996 by a fellow named Brewster Kahle. He's still the leader of the organization. Our original American headquarters are pictured here in San Francisco. And we also have just recently opened Canadian headquarters in Vancouver. So these are our new headquarters in Vancouver. If anyone's there, please come by. This is a former Bank of Canada building. So the Internet Archive is quite a massive resource. You can see the numbers there and the kind of variety of collections that we have. Our main site is at archive.org. This is what the site looks like. So many people know us for the Wayback Machine, which you can see here in the slide in the center, kind of top of that screenshot. I'm going to get to the Wayback Machine in just a moment, but I just want to note that we do have extensive holdings beyond Wayback, and the site overall is a result of partnerships that we have with libraries from all over the world. So many libraries and other organizations have pages within the overall archive.org site, and anyone can upload content with a free account. Just as one example, so this is the Internet Archive page for the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library at the University of Toronto. You can see their collections there. So archive.org, if you haven't checked it out, please do so. It's a great resource. So today we're going to be talking about web archiving. So I'm going to turn to that. So I want to start with a definition so that people are all on the same page. The International Internet Preservation Consortium defines web archiving as the process of collecting portions of the World Wide Web to ensure the information is preserved in an archive for future researchers, historians, and the public. For those who aren't familiar, the IIPC is an international consortium of libraries and other organizations that was established to coordinate efforts to preserve internet content for the future. So a web archive is different from just an archive on the web. A web archive is a collection of archived URLs or websites or social media. It's often grouped by theme, event, subject area, or web address. So it is not just an archive of digital objects on the web, but rather is an archive of the web itself. So a web archive, I just want to note, it aims to contain as much as possible from the original web content. So we're not talking about just capturing screenshots of websites or other web content, but rather capturing the underlying source code of a web page. And the goal is to really recreate the same experience that a user would have had if they had visited the live website on the day that it was archived. So an archived website should have all the functionality of the live web. And it allows us to track changes in websites over time. So I just want to show a couple of use cases. These are some examples of web archive collections that were created in ArchiveIt. So the first is this one by the Princeton Theological Seminary. This is a collection of Princeton area churches. The goal, based on their metadata, was to collect web content representing churches in or near Princeton, New Jersey. The collection has been developed since August of 2013, and it's quite a large collection at 2 terabytes and 31 websites. So you can see here a screenshot of an archived web page. This is a capture from 2013 of St. Paul's of Princeton, the St. Paul's of Princeton website. Another use case, so I'm highlighting this one because the Schomburg Center is a member of our Community Webs program, which I'm going to talk about later. So this is a collection that the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture has created on Black collecting and literary initiatives. Schomburg is a research center at the New York Public Library. So this collection, they are preserving and providing access to archived blog posts, websites, and other articles documenting Black collecting and literary initiatives, such as Black-owned bookstores and reading groups, archived since 2019, and a bit smaller of a collection at 67 gigabytes and 23 websites. So you can see another example of a web page there, an archived web page that is part of that collection. And then the last use case I want to highlight is the Collaborative Art Archive. They have a collection of art gallery websites. I want to highlight this one because it's an example of a collaborative web archiving project involving many institutions. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Carta later and how that collaborative project works. But this is basically just a collection of websites of art galleries, gallery exhibitions, and art dealers. And it's quite a large collection as well at 1/4 terabyte. So that gives us a little bit of a sense of the breadth of types of collections that you can build through web archiving. Okay, so why do we need to build these types of collections? I don't think it's going to be a sort of difficult argument to make to folks on this call. The web is obviously a very rich source of information of contemporary life. A lot of information that is now that was once captured in analog or more traditional digital records is now only accessible on the web. But I also just want to emphasize how at risk web content is. So a typical web page lasts between 90 and 100 days before it changes, moves, or disappears completely. Our friends at Old Dominion University found that over 10% of event-related content posted to social media is lost after just 1 year. And the folks at UCLA found that 7 in 10 scholarly articles that include citations with hyperlinks suffer from reference rot, meaning they no longer link to their intended resource. So the web is changing very quickly, and the implications, I think, are obvious for preserving the historic record, as well as for our written systems of scholarship. So that's a little bit of the why. But I want to start getting into some of the how. So this is at a very high level, the workflow that you would follow to do web archiving, particularly with ArchiveIt. We basically start in the upper left corner with the person who is at the computer. This is the selection or appraisal stage. This is where we decide what websites or other web content we want to archive. So in ArchiveIt, at least, these chosen websites tend to be organized into collections around a topic or theme, as we saw in the use cases. Once we've selected our websites, then we're going to start crawling. This is represented by the spider icon in the top middle. So a crawler or a robot or a bot is an automated software application. It goes out to the live web, which is represented in our diagram by the website in the upper right corner. So it goes out to the live web and it gathers up all the source material that make up the web page that we've selected. So all the HTML files, all the CSS files, images, video, everything that makes a website. And then it packages those into what is called a WARC file. And a WARC stands for Web Archive File. We can see it in the bottom right here. A Web Archive file is the international standard for web archives, and that was a standard that was developed partially by the Internet Archive. Unfortunately, WARC files do not just automatically replay on our computer when we open them, but they require technology to replay them. The ArchiveIt replay mechanism is called Wayback. So through this replay mechanism at the bottom center, we then see our archived web page, which is in the lower left corner here. Now, we know that this is an archived web page versus the live web because it has the banner at the top. So that banner is going to tell us that it is an archived web page, who archived it, and when. Now, the internet is a very dynamic environment. It changes very quickly, so it can be a challenge to archive. So then this sort of brings us back to the person at the computer who's going to do quality assurance to make sure that their captures are replaying as they expect. And they're also going to add metadata. So just like in traditional analog and digital archival materials, we need metadata to facilitate access. And then this whole process is iterative. So we are obviously here with the Internet Archive, and we're going to be focusing on ArchiveIt, but we just wanted to point out some of the other tools that are out there. Conifer is a browser-based web archiving tool that basically captures websites as you browse around them. DocNow, this is an organization that aims to facilitate the ethical archiving of Twitter data, and they have a suite of tools that can help you do that, and they also do a lot of sort of outreach and programming around that mission. Web Curator Tool and Net Archive Suite are both tools that were developed by national libraries. They're both open source tools. And then we have the Wayback Machine and ArchiveIt from the Internet Archive. There are other tools out there, but these are just some of the ones that are available. And these ones are all open source. Okay. So going to the kind of Internet Archive tools, I think a lot of folks have probably heard of the Wayback Machine. A lot of people who have never heard of web archiving, I think have heard of Wayback. So Wayback Machine is the largest publicly accessible archive in the world, and you can see the numbers there. And I want to stress that this is a place where you could basically look up a website and see captures of that website over time. But I also want to stress that the Wayback Machine is a web archiving tool in and of itself. We have a Save Page Now feature, which is, if you see in the screenshot there, it's in the lower right-hand part of the screen. So if you enter URL into that Save Page Now feature and click Save Page, it will be uploaded to the Wayback Machine. So a lot of folks use the Wayback Machine itself as a way to archive the web. We also have a browser extension now that lets you capture the live web as you're browsing around it. So I think I'm going to pass it over to Raven now. She's going to be looking at kind of the difference between ArchiveIt and Wayback, and then we'll do a deeper dive into ArchiveIt.
Great, thank you, Catherine. I'll just share my screen here. Catherine, can you see that okay? Great, thank you. All right, so with that, I'll jump into giving a general overview of ArchiveIt. So Catherine just gave a very great description of the Wayback Machine, which is an excellent resource for web archives. But a question that we often get is, how does ArchiveIt specifically actually differ from the Wayback Machine? And I think the best way to differentiate between the two is to kind of explain what exactly it is that ArchiveIt offers. So ArchiveIt is a curator-controlled, fully hosted service that offers users the ability to run crawls and collect exactly what they want when they want to. Users can organize this content into discrete collections on topics that they choose and they name. We provide technical support via support tickets for our users, and we also have a robust help center with articles, step-by-step instructions, videos, and advanced training options. Content that's collected using ArchiveIt is also indexed for full text search on our site, so users can also add their own metadata, which is also searchable. Data hosting is also built into every ArchiveIt subscription, but users will always have the option of downloading and keeping copies of their own data locally as well. And ArchiveIt was built with access in mind, but we have lots of partners who are collecting content that they don't necessarily want to make public. So we offer a number of different options for limiting access and making content private if they wish. And then content collected using ArchiveIt is also always available in Wayback, which is our own instance of the Wayback Machine within 24 hours of a crawl finishing. So that's kind of a general gist of how ArchiveIt works. You can see that there's lots of features that I mentioned that aren't available via the Wayback Machine, although there are some similarities in how they work. The Wayback Machine is really just one large collection, and there are no options for customizing what's collected. It also does not have full text search or cataloging either at the moment, and the data is not available to download on the Wayback Machine. It's also all public, which is part of the reason why we love it, and it's such a useful resource. But access to content can vary, so it's hard to say exactly when something that was archived will become available to view. Another key difference between the two is that ArchiveIt is a subscription service. So unlike some other tools out there that are completely free, ours does have a fee involved. A subscription is for 1 year, it's renewable and available by data level. So you're only ever charged for the data that you are collecting in your subscription year. Even if you leave ArchiveIt and discontinue your subscription, the data is still yours. We will always continue to provide access to it. You just wouldn't be able to add any new content to your collections if you discontinue. And if you ever do decide to rejoin, you can jump right back into the same account where you left off, and you can pick it right back up again. Our lowest data level is 1/8 of a terabyte or 128 gigabytes, and it can go up from there. And this is what we would call our pro level subscription. We also offer some subsidized subscription options as well. We have what we call ArchiveIt Basic, which is available at a significant discount for mission-aligned, volunteer-driven, or small organizations with financial constraints. That option typically starts at around $500 annually for 128 gigabytes of data archived. This option includes all of the same features as our regular subscription, with the only difference between them being is that it does not include unlimited direct technical support via support tickets, but you will have access to our help center still. And lastly, we offer something else called a web snapshot crawl. And this is a one-time crawl that we would manage and around 4 partners for sites that they choose. I'd like to just share some use cases for an ArchiveIt subscription to illustrate how partners use our service. Catherine highlighted some examples earlier, but I'll kind of dig into these a little bit here. So most of our partners' use cases for Archivit fall into these three categories. The first is subject-based or event-themed collections. These types of web archives can augment physical collecting practices, or they may focus on a topic that is exclusively web-based. Others are focused on collecting the web presence of an event as it unfolds in real time. So something like a collection on the COVID-19 pandemic would fit into this use case. The second example here are collections that are developed to meet a records retention mandate. Many of our partner organizations are mandated to collect institutional records that are increasingly distributed exclusively online. So using Archivit is an easy way for them to collect and provide access to this content. And then the third example here is what we call one-time snapshots, which I mentioned on the previous slide, are crawls of websites that are about to go either permanently offline or undergo a major redesign. Like I mentioned, in cases like this, we will often run a one-time crawl on behalf of an organization. So they would pick the website or websites, and we would do the actual crawling. But it's also an option to subscribe so that you can run your own web snapshot crawl and then continue crawling that site or other sites after the changes are made. So next, I'll talk just a little bit about access. With an Archivit subscription, you would have browsing and full text search access to all of your archived content, both public and private, via password-protected login to the Archivit web application. If you choose to keep some content private, this is how you can access your own material that you archive. But all Archivit partners also have the option of using a landing page on our public portal, which looks like this, archivit.org, to provide public access to their archived content. From here, users and patrons can browse your collections and search any content that you choose to make public. And I'll show you what this looks like in just a few minutes in a demo. In addition to having a landing page on archivit.org, some of our partner organizations are also providing custom access to their archived content on their own websites. Because Archivit is built on a whole series of APIs, it's possible to leverage those to bring all of your collected content to where your users already are. It's also possible to pull in content to your catalog if you would like, and also to have it display in WorldCat. We provide some additional instructions and examples for doing this in our Help Center, as well as code for embedding full text search functionality into your own page if you would like. And here on the slide here, I just have two examples of institutions that actually have created their own landing pages that display their web archived content. On the left is the University of Texas at Austin. And this webpage is available through their library website, where patrons can see all of their crawled content in the interface that they designed, which is pretty neat, I think. We have a list of other institutions that have designed custom access portals as well, if you're interested in seeing what they have done. Some organizations want to keep some or even all of their archived content private, so we make it possible to restrict access to entire accounts, individual collections, and specific URLs. We can also limit access to specific IP addresses if, for example, you want to restrict access to your reading room or headquarters or things like that. And all Archivit subscription levels include storage of a primary and backup copy of your archived data, and also a third copy stored in our general archive. Partner organizations are also always able and encouraged to download their own archives for local storage if they want, and instructions on how to do this are available in our Help Center. We also have relationships with LOCKSS, that's Lots of Copies Keep Stuff Safe, out of Stanford, and also DuraCloud. Both of these options offer automatic data syncs in addition to the copies that we also keep. And if you do use another preservation service, we're always working to open up new partnerships. I'll just highlight as well that the Internet Archive is also releasing its own digital preservation and storage service called Vault, which has a planned release of early 2023. I think Catherine is planning on touching on this a bit later as well, but if that's something that interests you, you could keep an eye out for it. Before we dive into our demo, here are some terms that you will hear. If you have done some web archiving, they're probably pretty basic, but if not, I hope that this is helpful. I'll just run through them super quickly so that you have a basic foundation. So the term crawler refers to software that collects data from the web. Here at Archivit, we have two types of crawlers, our standard crawling technology and also our browser crawling technology. A crawl is a web archiving operation by a crawler that collects materials of your choice from the web. A seed URL is the starting point URL for a crawler, and the seed URL also serves as an access point to view archived content in Wayback or replay software. A document refers to any file with a unique URL, and web pages are made up of these individual documents. And finally, scope refers to what the crawler will and will not capture. So now I'll go ahead and give us just a quick demonstration of how ArchiveIt works and how you can provide access to content using our service. All right. So first, I'll give a brief overview of the public portal, and then I'll give a quick behind the scenes at an ArchiveIt account. But before diving into the public portal, I just wanted to quickly highlight our products and services tab right here under our Learn More section. So this is where you can find more detailed information about our varying subscription options. Like you mentioned earlier, all ArchiveIt accounts come with the same functionality, with the two main differences between options being the data level and the amount of support that you get. So I'll head back to the home page of ArchiveIt now. Some of you may already be familiar with what this page looks like if you've poked around a little bit. Every ArchiveIt partner has the option to provide public access to their archived content via a landing page on this portal. And like I mentioned, ArchiveIt is organized into discrete collections that partners have created. There are a few different ways that you can explore these collections, as well as explore the collecting organizations themselves. So you can do this by kind of scrolling through these carousels here that we have. You can also use the search boxes that we provide for each. And you can also click here to browse a full list of each. So I'll take a closer look at an organization's landing page now, just to kind of show you what it looks like. So I will search for a collecting organization down here, and I'll search for one of our community webs members, East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Here it is. So I like to kind of demo this partner as an example because they've put a lot of work into their landing page, including adding an image to customize it on the left here. Every organization can upload their own information, including a description and a logo, so that people can kind of understand what the organization is about. And if we scroll down on the page, we can see a list of all of their publicly available collections, including descriptions that they've added about each one. And we can click into any of these collections. So I'll go ahead and click into this birthday celebration collection right here. So doing that brings me to a collection page. And here we can see that they've added a different logo that and a different description as well that's specific to this collection. Immediately below the description at the top, we also have a search bar, which we can use to find where a search term appears in the metadata. From the search bar, you'll be searching the metadata of a given organization or collection by default. However, there's also the option to perform full text search within those results. On the left side of the collection page, we have faceted metadata that East Baton Rouge has included to help facilitate searching. And then if we scroll down some more on the right here, we have all of the websites that they've chosen to include in this collection, along with descriptions and metadata that break down the content even more. So for example, with this first entry titled Worth 1,000 Words, we can see from the way that the URL is formatted that this was a one-page crawl, so they archived a singular page instead of an entire website. However, we also can crawl entire websites, which I'll show you with this one underneath, the Baton Rouge 200. So if we click on this URL here, or any of the URLs on this page, this will serve as an access point that will take us to something that we call a calendar page. A calendar page will show all of the dates that a particular page has been archived. And it looks like this page was first archived in early 2017 and last archived, let's see, on March 26, 2018. So if you select any one of these dates, it will take you to a page as it was on the date of that capture. So I'll go ahead and do that. Might take a few seconds to load. If it's being slow, I also preloaded it here just in case, so I'll go ahead and switch to this one. So this is an archived page. Like Catherine outlined earlier, here we have gone in with our crawling technology on the live site. We've collected all of the source code that makes these pages complete, and we've stored it in a web archive file called a WARC. For us here at Archivit, a WARC is no larger than 1 gigabyte, so it usually takes multiple WARCs to save one website, depending on its size. And you'll always know that you're looking at an archive page by this yellow banner here at the top. The banner has some helpful information in it, including who archived it, when, what collection it belongs to, stuff like that. There will also be a quick link here to any archived media if any were found on the page, but it looks like there was none found on this one. So this archive page is not a screenshot, but a dynamic site, and we can navigate the archive page the same way it was when it was initially captured. We can click into the links the same way that we would on the live web. And then if the page was archived, we should be able to see it, again, with the yellow banner at the top. And we'll actually know when we have left the archive page because there will be a message saying that the page has not been archived. But this one was, and we can go ahead and click around on this page as well. So that was a little tour of what a public collection looks like. I'll go ahead now and show how this page actually came to be archived. So to do everything related to your Archivit account, you can just click on the orange login button. Let's go back to the public portal here. The orange login button at the top here, and that will take you into your account. Because we use a web-based application, there's no software to install or anything to download. All you need is an internet connection. So I'm already logged in here, so I'll switch over. When you log into your Archivit account, you'll be directed to this homepage that you see here, where you can see high-level information about your account. Remember that an Archivit subscription is based on the amount of data archived each year, and you can keep track of your data budget, including how much data you have used and how much is left by using this handy graph on the left over here. You can also expand the boxes directly below this to see information about this subscription year, or if you're a multi-year partner, past years. And a common question that we're asked is, how much data do I actually need? And the answer is always a little bit unclear. Most websites don't come with a big sticker on the front that says exactly how much data they hold, although I certainly wish that they did. What we do tend to say is that our entry level, so 1/8 of a terabyte, will get you a crawl of your institutional website and some social media. If you're looking to crawl content more frequently, or if you're interested in collecting content that's beyond your institutional footprint, then we would probably recommend a higher level. In the center of this overview page, when you log in, you'll also see quick links to your active collections, as well as information about those collections in this table. This is also where you can create a new collection by just clicking on this blue Create a Collection button. You can give your collection a name and then hit Create. And then at the top of this homepage, we also have this main black navigation bar. And this is static across all pages and provides a bird's eye view into your account. So home, this is where we are right now. Collections, directly to the right of it is where you can access a full list of the collections in your account, both the active collections, so collections in which you have crawl scheduled or plan to add content to in the future, and inactive collections, which are collections in which you no longer plan to add any content. And then a crawl is the word that we use to indicate the act of going out and archiving content on the web. So from the crawls tab, you can access post-crawl reports for all crawls across all of your collections. You can monitor crawls that are currently running, and you can also see what crawls are scheduled to run. The archives tab next to it is where you can access your archived pages, both via direct links to Wayback or via full text search. Like I mentioned, archive pages are available 24 hours after a crawl completes, and full text search is available after 7 days. The last tab here is ARS, which stands for Archive Research Services. And this is where you can download your data and take it home with you in file formats that are kind of better suited to big data analysis. This tab will actually be changing in the next few months to reflect some new integrations that we have with Archives Unleashed. So this will be a place for people to access big data and request alternative file types aside from works if you or a researcher are interested in working with this content. This will be a place where you can go and do that and see things visually. You will be able to generate some handy graphs and get a little bit more information about your whole suite of web archives, which is pretty exciting. Then the Help Center on the right here is where you can find the Archivit user guide, which has lots of helpful documentation and videos. We also have user forums where partners can ask questions and share information. And this is also where partners can submit a support ticket in the top right here. And all partners, regardless of account level, will have access to this Help Center. And then accordingly, we also have our help widget in the bottom right, which is static and available across all pages in the web application. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at what a collection actually looks like. I'm going to click into this Canadian UNESCO World Heritage Sites collection. Once you click into a collection, you'll notice that a second navigation bar has appeared in the center of the page. This is your primary workbench, which will help you to navigate through this collection specifically. So from the Overview tab, which it takes you to automatically, you can see high-level information on the collection, like the amount of data archived and its visibility on the Archivit landing page. And collections are public and active by default, but you can adjust these settings at any time. The Seeds tab next to it is right here, and a seed, again, is the term that we use to describe the starting point URL for a crawler, and it's the access point to archive content. So from this tab, you can add seeds, you can adjust their settings, and you can run certain types of crawls. And to add a new seed to a collection, you can just hit the Add Seeds button on the right here, and then you can type in or copy and paste the URL that you would like to collect right into this box. And how the URL is formatted will give our crawlers parameters for what to capture. We also have some dropdowns underneath. We have access, where you can toggle the access for this seed from public to private. We have frequency, which is where you can set the frequency for your crawl. You can set it to run just the one time, or you can schedule it to run automatically at a frequency that you choose, such as weekly, monthly, or annually. Then we also have the seed type at the bottom, which is another way of telling the crawler how much or how little of a site to collect, be that the entire website or just one page. So we have lots of options for kind of customizing what you would like to archive. Also, these parameters can be changed as often as you wish. So when you finish setting all of these parameters, you can just hit the Add Seeds button at the bottom here. So once you've selected and added the seed that you would like to archive, you can now start crawling. To run a crawl, you can select one or several of the seeds from this table, and this will activate the Run Crawl button up here. And from this box, you can add even more parameters like data and time limits and crawl type. There are two types of crawls that you can run. We have production crawls, which apply crawl data directly to your account, and test crawls. And a test crawl is temporarily held for 60 days, giving you time to review the crawl report and the archive pages, decide that it's what you expected to see and is in line with your data budget, and then you can choose to save or delete the crawl as you would like. When you're already here, you can hit crawl at any time to start collecting. I'll quickly just highlight the crawls tab next. I won't go into too much detail, but this is where you can get information about your crawls. Every time you run a crawl, so every time you send the crawlers out to go and collect content, you will receive two things back: a crawl report and a set of archive pages. Every crawl that you run, regardless of type, will generate a full post-crawl report, which gives you very detailed information about what exactly the crawler saw, what was collected, and why the crawl finished. Each crawl report will have its own unique crawl ID, which is in the left-hand column here. And you can access crawl reports by clicking directly on an ID. And this tab is also where you can track crawls that are currently running by going to this Current Crawls tab. The collection scope tab here provides you with even more options to limit or expand what the crawler saw by default. And then the metadata tab is where you can add or edit metadata for your collection. Archivit uses the standard Dublin Core element set for metadata. There are 15 fields here, but partners can also add any and as many custom fields as they want. If you have something that you would like to make a little bit more specific to you, or if you'd like to link this to your website, finding aid, or things like that. And all of this goes toward boosting access. You can also edit seed or document level metadata in bulk by using either of these two tabs here, by uploading an ODS file. And when I use the word document, a document in this case is any file with a unique URL, be that a PDF file, a Google Sheet, an image, or a video. On the far right-hand tab here, this is where you can also add metadata for single documents. We also offer some tools under Wayback QA for doing quality assurance on your captures. And then finally, we have the Upload Works tab, which gives partners the option to upload external work files directly into a collection. If, for example, you've used other capture mechanisms previously, like the ones Catherine outlined at the start of this presentation, and you would like to include those in your Archivit collection. So that was kind of a super speedy run through of Archivit, and I'll pass the baton back to Catherine now to discuss other Internet Archive initiatives.
All right, thank you, Raven. Okay, can you see my screen again? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I don't have too much time because we want to have some time for questions, but I just want to go over some of the community programs that we have at the Internet Archive that relate to Archivit or sort of complement it. Mary Grace had asked us to talk specifically about community webs, but I want to quickly just touch on these other ones as well in case folks are interested. So community webs, I'll start with that one. Okay, so Community Webs is a community history web archiving program. It launched in the US in 2017 and in Canada in 2021. The impetus for the program is that web archiving to this day really falls predominantly within the domain of quite large institutions, mostly government bodies and universities. And there's a fairly significant bias in web archiving against collecting at the local or community level. So this program was designed to kind of remedy that bias. Its mission is to advance the capacity for community-focused memory organizations, so organizations like public libraries, community archives, local museums, historical societies, organizations like that. So advancing the capacity for these types of institutions to build web archives that document local histories. And the program has a particular emphasis on voices that have typically been underrepresented in the historic record. So Community Webs members receive access to web archiving technologies. They get an Archivit account with technical support. And then we have other types of programmatic support. They receive training in web archiving and other forms of digital preservation. And then we have built in networking and professional development opportunities as well. We have 140 member organizations. We're mostly in the US and Canada, but we do have a small kind of global reach. We've grown really significantly since we first started. We started with 15 organizations in 2017. And Community Webs members have created over 600 publicly accessible collections. That's over 100 terabytes of data. And, you know, the breadth of topics ranges as widely as sort of the rest of our Archivit collections. And you can see some examples there. All of the Community Webs collections are available on the Archivit public platform, which Raven just showed you, but we also have a Community Webs access portal that just launched. So this is where all the Community Webs collections live kind of together. This is also where you can find information about the program and how to apply. I also want to just note that American Community Webs collections are eligible for upload to the DPLA, and we're working on a partnership with Our Digital World in Ontario, Canada as well. So that's Community Webs. I think that's probably the program that will be most relevant to folks on this call, but I also just wanted to point out Carta, which I already mentioned. This is a collaborative web archiving project that is a partnership between the Internet Archive and the New York Art Resources Consortium. This project is aimed at capturing and preserving at-risk web-based art materials, and it follows a little bit of a different model. So with community webs, member organizations do their own web archiving. In Carta, it's more of like a centralized kind of approach. Member organizations nominate websites and via committee contribute to metadata, outreach, and communications, that type of thing. But the web archiving itself is done centrally by staff at the Internet Archive. There's over 35 organizations participating in Carta, and they've captured almost 500 websites across, 8 topical collections. So that is Carta and Community Webs. I do want to note right now we are not accepting applications for either of these programs, but we will be opening up applications again soon. We're currently sort of in a planning phase with both of these programs as we try to figure out what they're going to look like sort of past our grant funded period. These are both funded by major grants, but stay tuned for calls in the future. We're just sort of in that kind of planning area. And then I just want to point out 2 more in like 30 seconds. So Archives Research Compute Hub, also called ARCH. This is a service that will support research with web archives, specifically research that is interested in analyzing web archives at scale. So rather than just browsing individual websites, rather approaching web archive collections as data sets that can then be analyzed. If anyone is interested in supporting this type of research, we are launching this service in Q1 of 2023, and we're about to start a pilot phase. If you're interested in being part of the pilot phase, I've got a link to a form there. And finally, Vault, which Raven mentioned, that's our digital preservation service, which we are launching fairly soon as well. I'm actually not sure the exact date. It's also in the pilot phase. So if you want to test out Vault as a pilot partner, we have a form there. And Vault, one of the benefits is that it utilizes the Internet Archives data centers. We're a nonprofit. We own all of our own data centers, so you know that your data is not being sent to Amazon or something like that. So 4 programs. If you have any questions, let us know about those. Just a few resources. Please check out the ArchiveIt blog, archivit.org/blog. This is where we post, calls for applications for community webs and Carta, and check out the community webs website as well. I think that's it. 8 minutes for questions, so not too bad. So yeah, if you can email us at either one of these email addresses, or feel free to ask us questions now. I'll stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Wow, thank you both so much for that comprehensive review and all the programs that are in place now and coming up. It's amazing. So we do have some questions. The first question from Gwendolyn: does ArchiveIt have the capability to crawl things like SharePoint sites and other cloud storage sites that are not public facing?
It's a great question. I'm not super familiar with archiving SharePoint sites myself, but in general, we can archive content that's, for example, behind like a login screen. So if you have credentials, you can enter your username and password. We just can't do kind of 2-factor authentication or any login screen that kind of pops up. I'm not too familiar with kind of SharePoint. I'm not sure, Catherine, if you have any other experience with that, but
No, unfortunately, I do not.
Yeah, definitely send us an email and we can maybe dig into it a little bit further for you.
Okay. Owen asks, I was wondering what would happen if you seeded a crawl, but it caused the crawler to grab much more data than you expected. So, whoa, I didn't realize there was 20 gigs of data there. Can you undo or delete the results of the crawl? Or is it a test crawl? The only way is to gauge and trial and error.
Yes, that happens quite often. I myself do that all the time. It's so hard to know how much data a crawl will pull in. We do recommend test crawls for that reason, because it's not stored permanently, especially when you're crawling a new site for the first time. Once you crawl a site that's not a test crawl, we can't delete the data from your account. It's there permanently, unfortunately, but accidents do happen. So when that does happen, you can always get in touch with us and we can kind of remove the data so it doesn't apply to your data budget in your account.
Great. It's wonderful to know that you have so much support to offer people and help if they run into issues. Now, there was a term that came up, ODS, and Carol is asking what that means.
Great question. Sorry for not explaining that earlier. An ODS is an open document spreadsheet, I believe, and it's just a file format that we use to kind of upload metadata. So it's just like a Google Sheet, essentially.
Okay. How does Archivit handle embedded media such as YouTube videos, Spotify playlists on web pages? That question's from Jackie.
Great question. We typically handle embedded media pretty well, especially some of the bigger platforms like YouTube or Vimeo, but it can really depend on the website that the video or audio content is embedded in. We have kind of an audiovisual collection tool that we use that works better on some websites than others. So I would say it's highly dependent on the website. And we would encourage people to submit support tickets to us if they're having trouble.
Great, thank you. And Carol also, she's one of your Archivit partners from Georgetown Law, says our website has become so large it's very difficult to crawl it using a single collection. There are frequent timeouts. I'm thinking of splitting our website into different collections covering different parts of the site. So would that be a good approach?
I think so. I think everyone kind of organizes their content differently. So if that's what works for you, then I think that's a good approach.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have the Choctaw Cultural Center in Oklahoma. I think this is how they organize their Archivit account. Yeah, so if you, here, let me just put this in the answer to the question. If you look at them, that might give you an idea of
how they split things up. Okay.
Yeah, so they're mostly focused right now on capturing their own website, and they've got it kind of split. So that's one example of how you might do that.
Thanks. Claire asks about the quality assurance process. Is it an extensive process that's needed following crawls?
It's definitely not necessary. We know that lots of folks who are doing web archiving don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it. It's sometimes just a very, very small portion of their job. So we try and everyone's doing it in different ways. We have steps that you can take, but we also have kind of easy ways that you can take a quick look and see what further steps are needed. There's absolutely no need to do extensive hours of QA on websites.
Well, that's good to know. Is there a way to pull basic metadata during the crawl rather than having to enter it all?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. We do have a grab title feature, so you can grab the title of a website and it will kind of populate that for you. But I think that's the only one. I'm not sure, Catherine, if you know of anything else, but
there is some automatically generated metadata, things like the URL and the time that it was crawled and stuff like that. But in terms of more descriptive metadata, it's pretty manual at this point. But you can, as Raven mentioned, you can do bulk uploads. So you're not sort of individually entering metadata per site.
Per item. Okay, gotcha. We have just a minute or two left, and James is wondering about the sandbox. If you could just quickly talk about that. Oh, I see that it's going to be, that question is going to be answered right in the Q&A, but so the sandbox is something everyone can try.
Sure, yeah, so that was the account I used for the demo. That's our trial sandbox. So I think we offer kind of free trials of Archivit. I can't remember how long they're for, but partners can essentially get a collection and run some crawls and kind of see how to use the feature before they sign up. You could get in touch with us if you're interested in that.
Oh, that's really good to know. Okay, great. Well, we're almost at the hour, and I want to thank you both very, very much much for this presentation, useful to so many of us, and for all the resources you provided on the blog. So we'll make sure people know about that. And we will be sending out the recording of this session in about 3 days. And then in about a month's time, it will be up on our YouTube channel. So if you need to revisit it, which I'm sure I need to, then it will be there. So thank you again. Thank you to our host on Zoom, also the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph in Canada, and hope that many of you can join us for our next offering, which will be out on the listservs, etc. So watch for that. Thanks again to both of you, and have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye.